have one of our summit speakers, Dr. Janet Childs. She spoke both on Mental Resilience Day and Emotional Resilience Day. And I reached out to her and she was gracious enough to do another interview with us that's focused toward first responder and victim advocate resilience. This is for you. It's for you. We talked before, we got on early. What we discussed is this is for you. It's to kind of give you a drink of water. It's to give you some nurturing. It's to lift you up and encourage you, because here's the deal. If you're here on this call, if you do what you do, it means that you, in this season of your life, you speak healing. You make a difference. And you are a light in the darkness for your patients, your clients, your the call, your case. I don't want to call it a call or a case, it's a person. But the bottom line is you are that light in the darkness. And the truth is we get tired. We get tired. And we have all the regular stuff that piles on. Just the regular job stuff, the regular life stuff, the regular relationship stuff, the regular health stuff. And now we have this additional, we were also talking this pandemic fatigue of COVID on top of all of us, all around the world. And now we have the holidays, which typically has stressors. What we're going to talk about today, and Janet, we just thank you. We welcome you for being here today. We're going to spend most of the time focusing on you as a first responder, as an advocate, as a post-scene responder, because here's the deal. The counselors that are on this call right now, you're post-scene responder. I was talking to a dispatcher yesterday. She may get the call 10 years ago. A dispatcher, okay, gets the call 10 years ago as a first responder. The responders go to the scene. Then you have the post-scene, perhaps. You have a legal advocates, which are post-scene. You have domestic violence or SA advocates that are a lot of times post-scene. Then you have counselors and trauma coaches that might be getting this years and decades later, okay? So we have all of that piled up. And now we're talking about the holidays. So Janet, you're gonna dive us into really helping our own selves lift up with how to cope with grief and loss without losing ourselves during the holidays. So welcome. Talk to us a little bit about grief. How can we look at grief and loss differently and without losing sight of our own selves during these holidays, Janet?
Well, I just have to acknowledge that we are in 360 grief with all that we are dealing with COVID-19, with, our racial inequity and social unrest, all that we are dealing with. There's so many pandemics happening right now for us. And so I'm wanting to let everyone know that the holiday season is challenging even on a good year when we don't have all of these other challenges. The key thing with the holidays is to remember that they were created many centuries ago, many of them, to create an environment where we can feel our gratitude, create meaning, and create resiliency. So it's a way for us to come together. And for those of you that are advocates, for those of you that are first responders, our Bay Area Critical Incident Stress Management team has found that you are the best support for each other because you understand the job you go through every day. You understand that. And so in the holidays, you're not only dealing with your own potential grief that may be, activated during the holidays, but you're also dealing with whomever you're working with, their grief and their situations. That may be years old, or it may have just happened 5 minutes ago. And so the best gift that we can give to each other during the holidays is to acknowledge that they are both challenging and very meaningful and fulfilling. And how can we make the best of it? And what that calls for is for us to really examine the holidays ahead of time, if we can. Really get connected with what it is in the holidays that are going to be difficult. What are we most dreading? And then what are we most wanting out of the holidays? Because it's all about us creating meaning from it. So we have the potential to move ourselves from out of control to in control in that moment, by just addressing the fact that the holidays may be difficult and the holidays we might be able to make them meaningful. And as caregiving responders, as first responders, as people on the front lines, you are dealing not only with the clients that you serve or the people that you work with, you're also dealing with your entire community. If you're in the military, it's incredibly hard. If you're a victim advocate, it's amazingly difficult because you're going to be doing extra what I call grief counseling with yourself, with your coworkers, with your friends and family. Now, what this means is that when we say the word grief, we're talking about our natural response to any change or loss in our life. You know, our Center for Living with Dying program is 44 years old, and we have learned that it's not only death-related grief, it's any kind of trauma or change or loss that happens in our life. It will be intensified during the holidays. But the good news is that we can have some ownership in how we do the holidays. Now, I'm not saying in any way that we're going to take away the pain, but if we acknowledge the pain, express it, work it through, and then come up with a plan of action where we're getting the most meaning out of it, where we're doing what we want to do to activate what the holidays are all about, which is love, gratitude, community, and healing. So if we can capture the essence of the holidays, claim it for ourselves, claim it for each other, while also acknowledging the holidays are particularly hard this year. And we have a tradition at the center. It was actually one of our first responders that brought it to one of our meetings. And he brought a candle. And he said, this candle is for the child I could not save and for my coworker who got hurt. And it's for me because I don't know how to deal with the stress. So I'm going to light the light because the light is the symbol of what we can bring to and for each other. The light of awareness and the light of comfort and also the light of strength that we can bring. And each of you brings your own light. Each of you brings your own light. And I'm going to ask each of you if I can have permission to light this light for you as a symbol of our gathering here today, right before Thanksgiving, as we examine these issues together. Before my brother died many years ago, he taught me how to make the origami crane. And I've had many people say, Janet, I think of it as an eagle. One young man said, I think of it as a phoenix. Whatever you want to call it, it's kind of the symbol of hope and healing and the wisdom that we can bring to each other when we come together and acknowledge these incredibly difficult issues. So I want you to take a breath, take a stretch, and just allow yourself to be totally here, for this time that we have together, and to let go of the cares and worries that may be on your plate, that may be in your backpack. We're just going to invite you to gently let those go today, because as we talk about it and we acknowledge it, we're going to gather some wisdom from and with each other. So I'm hoping it's okay. I've got an okay with everyone to light the candle. And think of it as a symbol of that light that we can be for and with each other. And know that you are the light for your coworkers. You're the light. Many of you are the light for your family members. And also, I want you to know that you are not responsible for making meaning for their holidays. You're only responsible for yourself. And we're only responsible for what we need to do for ourselves. And so many times we focus on, well, I have this obligation. And there are actually two kinds of obligations. One is what we feel like we have with our family and loved ones. Two is our own internal expectations that we put on ourselves for the holidays. As caregiving and responding professionals, we put a lot of burden on ourselves to make it okay for folks, to, help them get through it, and to do what we do that make other people happy. So this is a chance to not so much go for how much can we do, but how much meaning we can claim. So I'm going to put this down, but when we need to see it in the screen, just let me know. And Ana-Christina, do you have a wish for us today? Excuse me.
You know what? I've never met any of you on this call in person. Not not even Janet, right? We've become friends because of the summit. And as Janet's talking, this is a smaller group today. And we have the opportunity then to dive into things that maybe we wouldn't normally this is worldwide. We have a couple people that are outside of the country here. And I want to tell you, thank you. Really, the wish is that you could hear thank you from what could be one of your victims, okay? Because I was a victim and I was a survivor. And because of the work that you do, I do believe that it ripples. You and I may never have worked together one-on-one physically. However, you've helped somebody like me. And I want to tell you, thank you for the sacrifices that you've made. Thank you for showing up when you feel like crap because you have stuff going on. I know, I've already talked to a few of you that are on this call, and I know dang well that there's some crap going down for some people on this call. There's some crap going down that I don't have permission to share, and I'm just saying, let's also light a candle for each other because there's some stuff going down on this call, okay? Much less all the other people that are doing your jobs. I want to thank you. That's really my wish, is that you could hear, excuse me for the emotion, didn't expect to go here, that you could hear thank you from a former victim. That you could hear thank you from a former victim, because a lot of your victims that you're helping, a lot of the people that you're helping, some of you are helping students, some of you are helping obviously adults, military, civilian, doesn't matter who you're helping. They're emergent and they don't think to say thank you. They don't have the energy, but I do. And it's people like you that brought me through. So it's possible. It's possible. You end up seeing kind of the worst of the worst, and you end up seeing so much pain. What I want you to see is this is somebody that's had the privilege and the honor of being able to train over 10,000 people across the US. And part of that is because we turned collectively my mess into my message. All right. So that's my wish. I don't know if that's a wish or a prayer, but that you would be able to know thank you from a former victim and survivor.
Thank you, Ana. And I just want to offer for each of you that I'm going to back up Ana-Christina's thank you, because we at the Center for Living with Dying program have worked with over 1.5 million people. And we've often heard the thank you way after you responded, way after. I just heard something yesterday about a victim advocate that saved a person's life that was suicidal. After being beaten into a moment of her life, was saved by a victim advocate. She said, I was suicidal. I was ready to die. And she said, I was saved by this person that supported me. So I want to really back up. I want to be your backup singer on this one, Ana-Christina. We have heard the thank you from grieving people, from children. We have a children's program. From elders. Our oldest client is 103. And so I just want you to know that you make the difference as a first responder, as a caregiving professional. You're all responders. Yeah. And your presence is what they say thank you about. It's not so much what you say or even what you do. It's your presence that they remember and that they call to them when they have that crisis moment.
Yep.
And many times, because we work in long-term grief counseling, we hear it months or even years later, because we don't care how old your grief is. If you're grieving, you can come and get support from us, either group support or individual support. So I'm just going to back that up.
Yeah. And we have Christina, actually, she said, not really a wish, but I pray that we are all happy, healthy, and that no matter what we're going through, God strengthens us through the whole way.
Thank you, Ms. Christina.
Yeah,
Thank you, Ms. Christina.
So, we have an opportunity here, and I'm going to say this. I think that I don't know who all is on the call necessarily in their roles, and if you want to share with us your role, we would love to know that. Here's my personal thing is first responders don't get enough lifting up, okay? And one thing that COVID has done is to acknowledge first responders publicly, okay? Mm-hmm. One thing COVID didn't do, and I'm just going to be this, I'm going to be pretty blunt and transparent, is props for the very first and usually the very last, which is the 911 dispatchers and the victim advocates, because victim advocates serve such a massive role. Sexual assault, domestic violence, children's advocates, legal advocates, advocates that work with the DAs, people like somebody that helped me to go get my restraining order 23 years ago. Okay. She was an advocate. She sat with me in court when I was more scared for my life than anything. I didn't know, people who walked in with me to court for the divorce, and he had friends outside the courthouse heckling me before I went in to get my divorce, for goodness sakes. I mean, so advocates, right? And then trauma coaches and counselors who have helped along the way. But the bottom line is, to me, my blunt thing is, we all know a police officer. We know what they look like. We all know what a firefighter looks like. We all know what a paramedic looks like in their uniforms. Guess what? Dispatchers and advocates don't have uniforms. You don't have a cool, fancy, rig with flashing lights. And so I want to just give props to the entire spectrum of helping professionals that you are. I want to just give props in that way, and that acknowledgement. I can sit at the front of the room as a victim. That's one of the gifts that getting the shit beat out of me gave me, is I can sit at the front of the room. I can stand at the front of the room and tell you thank you from a former victim. Thank you on behalf of all of your victims, for returning them to their parents, for returning them to their children, for returning them to their sisters, because that's what you did for me. So, and helping me along the way to get me the tools that it took to be able to get married again and have for the first time really a marriage, right? A beautiful marriage, a strong marriage. So anyway, it's all about the thank you for you guys and to lift you up. Okay, Janet, back to you. I love you.
And I love you too. And, for each and every one of you, what drew you into this work, whether you're law enforcement, whether you're public safety, whether you're a victim advocate, whether you are, on the front lines in any of those roles, what brought you in, I'm sure, was the desire to help. None of us are making a lot of money. I'm an old ED nurse. That's the correct term now. I used to be an ER nurse, but now my nursing buddies have told me, no, Janet, you were an ED nurse. So I just go lots of places with that, but I'll just leave that to your imagination. But what I found when I was working in the emergency department is that every moment we have the opportunity to make an impact on another person's life. And it's just like you said, Ana-Christina. And the best gift we can give other people is by also giving that very gift to ourselves. I call it the infinity of giving and receiving. So we're going to invite you in our time together to really unpack the holidays. What has been in our backpack? As a matter of fact, what is in our backpack? In the backpack of grief, loss, trauma, also the backpack of joy, love, and sweet memories. All of that is in our backpack. And we're just going to invite you to acknowledge, what do you need to do to take care of yourselves this holiday? What do you need to do? What are some positive ways that you can rebuild the holidays? And the first step in our 4-step process is we need to acknowledge that what's going to be difficult, what's going to be challenging, what's going to be, rough this holiday. What are we most dreading, And our holidays are totally different this year. Many of us are staying home. We're not traveling. We're not going to different places where there might be relatives or friends or gatherings. And so what that means is that we, in a real way, are what? We are giving ourselves that opportunity to really go inward and to explore what are the meaning of the holidays. And that first starts by acknowledging, what's hard about the holidays. Many people in this room, I have a sense, I don't know, but I just have an intuitive sense, have gone through your own losses and changes in this year and in this fall season. The minute we start to feel the air getting cooler, the minute we start to feel fall in the air, we gear up for our seasonal change. And we are already anticipating the holidays, and it usually starts even before Halloween. We start gearing up. We know that that's what's coming up. And if you're from a different culture, There are many cultural holidays that happen this time of year, from September on through to the new year. And so there's a lot that we could be, looking forward to, or there's a lot that we could be dreading. And so just by acknowledging that, wow, there's a lot going on right now. What's the most challenging? And what hurts me the most right now? What's the most scary? What's the most difficult? And then we can acknowledge, what do I need to do to take care of it? And I don't know, if we can do this, because we have such a small group, but I'm hoping towards the end that we could do some acknowledgement for and with each other about, how the holidays are impacting us. And that first step. So I'm just going to invite you to take a nice deep breath and to take off your backpack. Now, this is kind of a thing that we've made up in the past, since the pandemic started. And it's kind of like you have a physical backpack or a rucksack if you're in the military. I was told by my Marines that I was working with down in SoCal that it's a rucksack, Jan, it's not a backpack. I said, okay. So we take it off and literally take it off for the time that we are together and just put it to the side. Just take it off and put it to the side. We'll be looking at it, but we're not going to be carrying it for this time that we are together. And to really be with ourselves in this present moment, where are we at with the holidays? Where are we at with the holidays? And I'd just like to ask if anyone would like to share in the chat, what's most difficult about the holidays? What's most difficult? What's the scariest?
So we're going to throw in the chat, what's the most difficult for me? I'm just going to be real transparent. I'm getting lonely. I'm getting lonely. I am the only sister that is in Colorado, and my parents are here. So I'm the primary kind of helper for my parents, and they're older.
Wow.
And so we've stayed really isolated. My husband is home right now. He's had post-COVID MIS, AKA crap, okay, for 4 months, over 4 months. And so it's been a difficult time. So our just getting lonely is somehow exacerbated by the holidays. We have some other comments coming in here. We have dealing with relatives.
Yes.
Dealing with relatives, the sentence didn't get finished. Being away from my mom. Right? We have people that are, it looks like people that are deployed, because we have people that are across the world right now, either deployed or on assignment. What else? What else are, when you look at the backpack that we just took off, if you zip it open, and this is a time really to have courage. This is the time to have courage and be able to take a look at what's in that pack. I am going to, full disclosure, we are recording. I'm going to send it out to my email list, and I can take out names. If you have an issue with your name being said, I'm going to go back and edit. The only people who are hearing your name right now are the people that are live on the call. So I can certainly go back through and edit names out if you have a problem with your name being in there. Dealing with relatives who lack tolerance, the ones who think everyone agrees with them, and it surprises them when anyone disagrees with them and their Neanderthal beliefs. Yeah. I say, yes, I get that, right? I have some friends who I'm struggling with that. Overseas, away from kiddos for the first time since birth. Oh my God.
Wow.
Okay.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's hard.
Overwhelmed.
That's hard.
There's a lot of this going around, right? And when we see that other people have this in their backpacks too, I'm not saying that it helps your own feelings. I am saying that it does help to realize that other people are feeling the same thing, because here's the deal, during this kind of call, we get to take the mask off. We have to be so professional, right? We get to take the mask off. So anything else that might be in the pack, and we can read them also if you want to, whatever you want to do with this, Janet.
Yes. Well, I want to acknowledge, thank you for your courage and your honesty, because this is what it's about. This is how we can tend and befriend. This is how we can take care of each other and honor each other for what we're going through. Because the two factors that make stress and grief worse, especially around the holidays, are feeling isolated and feeling out of control. So the two things that we want to do today is to get you out of isolation and into team. And that's what we're doing here today by your courage and being here, and get you from out of control to in control in any way that we can. And sometimes that means maybe healing some of the unfinished business from the grief and the loss during the holidays. It means, what can we do to release that weight of that pain as we're going into the holidays so that we can meet them in the present moment? So thank you for naming it. And overwhelmed is a word, and I've seen it here from a couple of you, and lonely and being away from your kiddos. Absolutely. I mean, these are incredibly hard. Dealing with relatives who don't understand. I really want to acknowledge that. Dealing with relatives that don't understand. Because for many of your relatives, you are the care provider. You are the responder. Because if you do this in your work life, you also do this in your home life. And so they're depending upon you to fix it, to make it better. And then we've got dealing with losing your mom. That is huge. And my friends, if you're dealing with any grief after the death of a loved one or a family member, or a coworker, my heart just goes out to you right now. My heart goes right out to you. This light is for all of you, and especially for those that are going through that kind of grief during the holidays, because the holidays just intensify it. So when we can relax and say, yeah, that's why I feel like, I can't really swear on this program. I'll try to be good. I'm trying to clean up my language. That's kind of my New Year's resolution. But we can actually, by acknowledging it, we give more room for it to be expressed. And we're not carrying that weight so heavily and so deeply into our body. Our body is always the container of the pain and the joy. And so when we just express that, doing it via chat is huge. So we often have a group at the Center for Living with Dying for a loss of a parent, for death of a parent. We have a group for death of a spouse or significant other or partner. We have a group for adults for death of a child. And we also have our Healing Heart group, which is for our youth and families that are dealing with grief. And we have the littles, middles, and teens. And then we have the adults that are dealing with a grief-related loss. And it's amazing how, when we just acknowledge it, it makes the load a little lighter. And when we can do that for and with each other, we're connected into a team, into a community. So thank you for naming it. And I'm seeing something from Patricia, Ana-Christina. I can't quite see it.
I live alone and was in the hospital earlier this year. I'm very close to my family. However, I had to tell my son yesterday I would not be with the family for Thanksgiving because I have been around a coworker who tested positive. This is incredibly difficult for me because I've also suffered the loss of my husband, mother, niece, and 2 sisters. I'm sorry for your losses.
Yeah, that's a
My
lot.
birthday's in 3 weeks, and I'm not sure how this will be celebrated. Patricia, thank you for sharing that with us. This is huge. And because you shared it, here's the thing.
Yes.
Because you shared it, and I'm speaking for the other people on the call, and please forgive me if I'm speaking for you, but guess what? Because you're here, you're a helping heart. It means that you have people all over the world that will lift you up. That's what it means, because you were brave enough to share this with us. So
absolutely.
Wow.
And that's a lot. And thank you for naming it and naming the details of it, because when we express the details of it, we can take a breath and we can share it. Not that anyone can totally take away our grief, but by sharing it in community. And if you take a look at community, cultural celebrations around grief and also around good times, it's all about sharing it with the community so that you don't have to hold it alone. And that's a lot. That's a lot. Thank you for your courage. Because every time you have the courage to do that, it can resonate for people that maybe are not able to say it. But now we're acknowledging it, we're expressing it. And so I want to ask, my friends, what are you most dreading about the holidays? Thank you, Ms. Christina. Absolutely. Because when we share, there's an old saying, I believe it came from Washington Irving, that said, a grief shared is a grief lessened. A grief shared is a grief lessened. And another thing that he said that was very powerful is that tears are the unspeakable voice of the depth of our love. Tears are the unspeakable voice of the depth of our love. So our sorrow is directly related to how much we love, to how much we connect. And I'm not willing to give up the love. I'm going to keep the sorrow. I mean, if I have to feel the sorrow, I'll feel it because I want to keep the love. If that's the depth of my love, then so be it. And I think we have a lot of shame, especially as responders, as caregiving professionals, that we need to be tough, we need to be strong, we need to be, somehow always together and have the answers all the time. And it's just wonderful to be able to say, you know what, I don't have the answers.
And I might need help, and I might
need help,
and I might need support.
Absolutely.
As a coach, right? As a coach, sometimes people who aren't very, people who don't have good boundaries or people who don't have good maturity, let me just put it that way, I don't care how old they are, and they say, oh, well, you're the coach, you this. Oh, you're the first responder. Oh, you're the this, you're the that, and they just throw it in your face. You're the advocate, you should know. Yeah. And it's just like bull snot, right? It's just like, really? I'm human first, regardless of what my role is. And sometimes it can be so hard to raise your hand and say, I need some resourcing. That's what the summit was meant to be all about, is to resource. That's what this kind of exercise is really all about. It's to resource and give you some strength in the sharing, right? Some strength in the sharing.
And, one of the feelings that we often go through is that feeling that everyone else has got it together. And social media has done a lot to, perpetuate this, that, everyone seems like they've got their life together. I was looking at a Facebook post, and I don't often look at Facebook. In fact, I've kind of stopped communication on mine just because I can't keep up with it, with all that's going on. But one of the things that she said, I was able to clean out my closets and I was able to do this. And I'm just going, I could no more do that than fly to the moon. I'm so darn busy. I don't know about all of you, but we're jammed up. We're busy. We're taking care of things. I mean, I love it that people are that organized that they can do that. But it's another way that we can actually beat ourselves up for not having it all together. And I want to offer to you that the biggest gifts you give is the gift of your depth and the gift of your honesty. That's what survivors tell us about you, is you give that gift of your depth and honesty. You give them permission to feel their feelings. It's one of the things that I love about you, Ana-Christina, is your ability to be with your presence, be with your emotions as they're happening in this present moment. That's so powerful. I had an incredible client who was a homeless client that had been horrendously physically and emotionally abused. And she said, my heart is like a hotel, and I love this image. And she said, everybody I love has a room in my heart hotel. And she said, when someone dies or goes away from me, nobody takes their room in my heart hotel. They're in there forever. And I fill up that room with the love and the memories and the good times. But to do that, she said, Janet, I have you as my grief counselor because you're going to help me release the pain, the guilt, the anger, the loneliness, the depression, the grief, the sadness. And I thought, that's what we can do for each other, is help release that pain so that we can claim the love, the memories, the sweetness, and the meaning. So, absolutely. And I thank you. Ana-Christina just said, I choose to stop comparing. Can't catch all of that, but you're choosing not to compare.
One of my coaches a few years ago, he said, social media is comparing everyone else's highlight reels, right? We just see their highlight reels. I cleaned my closets. Look at this great trip we took with our kids down to Mexico. Look at what we just bought, a Ferrari. We just bought a BMW. Look at look at what just happened. And they flash the diamond ring that has like a 4-carat diamond in it or whatever, right? Comparing everyone else's highlight reels to our blooper reels.
Yes.
So here's the deal. If you're going to look at somebody's highlight reel, the only fair thing to do is to compare it to your highlight reel, right? Your happiest moments, not just the outward success. I'm talking about joy. I'm talking about triumph. I'm talking about knowing who you are. I'm talking about knowing how you stand. I'm talking about knowing your purpose and living into that purpose. That's success when we really look at it. Let's compare your highlight reel of how you're moving into that, right? But what happens is with social media, we tend to, and even with each other, not just social media, we tend to compare our limitations to their triumphs. Does that make sense? It isn't a fair comparison. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So that was kind of a digression, but you kind of went off on that, that social media thing. But part of it is it gets us down. It means that we get to stop comparing. It means that we get to stop comparing. We get that choice. Janet, you said a couple of things. I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time for Q&A. So let's try to land this particular plane within 10 minutes, and then we'll have a little bit of Q&A time. What I wanted to do is, you mentioned, and I know that you go into it in the summit, okay? But would you just at least give us the list? We may not have time to dive deep into it right now, but you said that there were 4 things. 4 things.
Absolutely.
And it starts with acknowledging, and we just barely started that first tool, which, by the way, what I love about resilience tools, what I love about true resilience tools, true, right? Real resilience, is that it works not only for us, but it also works for our clients, for our patients, right? It works for the people that we go to help. And what's beautiful is that we get to practice it so that we can deliver it with congruence. We get to practice so that we can deliver it with congruence. Okay. So anyway, you talked about the first step being acknowledgement. I'm the note taker, the note taker. Everybody was like, wow, you take a lot of notes. I'm like, I know, I always have. So number 1 is acknowledge, and we dipped our toe into that just for a little bit. What else? What else do you have there on your steps?
Okay, the second one is express, getting it from the inside to the outside. And that literally, by acknowledging and expressing, it literally changes the biochemistry. I'm going to get nursey on you here. It changes the biochemistry of our body, and it boosts our immune system just by acknowledging it. Just by acknowledging it, our body and mind is in congruence, and we're saying, okay, we need to up the immune system. We've got issues here. Let's deal with it. So by acknowledging and expressing it, and expressing, this is very important, expressing the details, like many of you have here in a powerful way. These are the specifics that I'm missing or that I'm struggling with. Because by expressing the details, literally, we imprint trauma through the sensory pathways into the neural pathways of our brain. And what happens is that we keep them there until we are able to express the details. Who can hear the details? Are other people that do our job, because they have the capacity to hold the trauma, to hold the details. We need to be able to express it. Then we need to do an action step, and that moves us from out of control to in control. So when we can do an action step, even a tiny action step, and what's an action step we did today? We lit the candle. That is an action step, saying we are informing the world with light, with our light. We're going to bring our honesty, our courage, and our truth to this. And then the last step is to reconnect with what is still good, to reconnect with what still gives us joy, what still gives us meaning, and perhaps in this holiday, making a new meaning, okay? Making a new meaning. I was doing our Grief in the Holidays workshop for Center for Living with Dying just last week. And one of the people decided, she and her husband come from a huge family. She has a huge, step family, and she has a huge family of her own. And they were dreading the Christmas holidays in particular. And what she decided to do when her husband died is she decided to have, instead of gifts, to have love letters, so that everyone writes love letters to every other person in the family. And they're going to have a couple of Zoom meetings where they read each other their love letters. They read each other their love letters. And she said, I'm not going to put up a tree this year. I just don't have it in me. I'm not going to do it. But I might buy a plant. And I was just commenting on Christina's beautiful orchids that she has behind her. And she said, I might get an orchid, or I might get, just a plant that I like. But she said, I'm going to change things up. I'm going to do things differently. And I'm not going to take responsibility for what anyone else, needs to do to take care of themselves. I'm just going to ask for what I need for myself. And by talking with her family, she said, I realized, and a couple were in the workshop, they said, thank goodness. We were worrying about what to buy, what to get, how to do it. And to write love letters allows us to acknowledge and express our love, allows us to do that action step of reading it to and for each other, and then to reconnect with love, which is the basis of our life. And so I offer that to you. There are all kinds of ways we can switch it up. There is still time. And what I like to do is make a plan and then make a backup plan. Because you may have a plan that this is how I'm going to do my holidays. And then when you get towards the holidays, it might not feel right. It might not fit. You always have the choice to change. You always have the choice to change and to communicate with your family members and loved ones about how and why. And, inviting them to take care of themselves. So taking that burden off of yourself of taking care of others, because they're responsible for their own. And you take care of you, you actually become an example of how each of us can do that. And the underlying theme for this is take it one moment at a time. Be gentle with yourself. Be gentle. It is so important, my friends, that we be kind to ourselves, as kind as we would be to the most hurting person that we're supporting. That we give that same gentleness, that same permission, that same, support and kindness. Because when we do that, we are filling up. And when we allow ourselves to receive that kindness from each other, especially from our coworkers and from our families and loved ones, if we can receive that, it creates a powerful well of energy and support that we'll have to give out when we need to give it out. And so please let yourself be creative. Think of how you can switch it up. How can you change it? How can you get what you need? Because our two triage questions are this: what's hitting you the hardest right now? What do you need right now to get through it? What do you need right now to get through it? And if we can give ourselves that simple triage, that simple prioritizing, it will increase our ability to be there for others. And it will increase our ability to really have meaning and build meaning during the holidays. I have one retired firefighter who's she and her husband actually are both retired firefighters from different fire departments. They both ended up being chiefs. And she said, what I'm going to do this year is I'm going to work on the toy drive as a volunteer. I'm not going to be the big firefighter. I'm just going to, work on getting, toys for tots. And her father is a Marine, so she's hooked into that whole thing too. But what she found is that just being able to decide, this is where I'm going to put my energy. This will give me more energy than it takes from me. And that's the quality that I want you to each look at this holiday. If something gives you more energy than it takes, consider doing it. If it takes more energy than it gives, consider letting it go this holiday season. Consider letting it go this holiday season. You could possibly pick it up next year, but consider letting it go. So if it gives you more energy than it takes, that's the litmus test. That's what you gauge it by, is if it gives me more energy than it takes, consider doing.
As far as the details, the other thing I wanted to do is just literally to say, here's the deal. Go to wrrsummit.com, be a friend and share it with however many people you can. Even if I even shared it on my personal page, and I said, here's the deal. We don't know what first responders are in our pool. In other words, somebody might be married to one, somebody might have a cousin. People are like, oh, I have a cousin and I have a brother and and somebody's in the military and da 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 da. Be a friend and send this out. wrrsummit.com. The tickets are free. They're free. You can get over 13 CEUs for the sessions that are in this summit. So that's contact information that I wanted to share, wrrsummit.com. And at this point, I'm going to, nobody that's on the call hang up, okay? Nobody that's on the call hang up. But what I'm going to do is just bid farewell to the people that are on the recording. So this is Ana-Christina sharing tools of hope with the Resilience Builders. And I just want to thank Dr. Janet Childs for being with us here today and sharing these tools on coping with loss and grief at the holidays, for sharing your light, for sharing your love, your heart, so that we can continue to speak healing, so that we can continue to make a difference, and so that we can continue to be the light in the darkness. I'm going to sign off on the recording, and everybody who's on the live call, we get to do some Q&A.